I have to say, I was told Mr. Khan has to leave in a couple of minutes. Is there any question that someone would like to ask Mr. Khan specifically? Is there anyone? Would you like to comment before you have to leave? He has to leave now.
Just one last word. All terrorism, the roots lie in politics. To say that there is some sort of an Islamic radicalism is actually looking for solutions in religion. A Muslim fights in the name of Islam, but he's not fighting because of Islam. Every specific conflict has its own reason, and the reason is always political. I just want to finish up by saying that suicide attacks before 9/11, 70% were by Tamil Tigers in Sri Lanka. So they were not doing it for some religious philosophy. They were doing it because they were fighting for their independence as they felt against Sri Lankan. And the more desperate they got, the more they resorted to suicide attacks. It's not got anything to do with religion. And if we do not get this narrative right, we will be looking for solutions in the wrong, some moderate Islam. And we will never find a solution. The solutions are all political.
Thanks very much. Back the questions. You have to, I don't know, does he have to leave now or does he have a couple of minutes? You fly. You don't know, don't miss the connection. Thanks very much. Thank you very much, Imran Khan, for attending this panel. The gentleman back there, you were raising your arm all the time. Please, would you mind giving him the microphone and we come back here? I really try my best to let you all talk, really.
Thank you very much. I'll introduce myself. I'm Gilberto Cheno. I'm a business student. I come from Kenya. My question is to Mr. Ullman. He talked about Somali as a failed state. I accept, but don't you think that Somali being a failed state, it is also the intervention of the international community? You can, when you recall history, there was intervention of Ethiopia, there was intervention of maybe other military intervention, and recently there's a Kenyan intervention. So my question to you is, do you think that the intervention of this military intervention in Somalia is going to solve this problem, or even Kenya intervention is just going to bring more problems and more civils are going to die in this case? Thank you very much.
Maybe two other questions and then we'll take it back to stage. All right, okay. Who else? The ladies here, please. Please introduce yourself and ask quickly a question because we have only 10 minutes left.
Bonjour, donc, je m'appelle Sahar Siessi et je suis cadre supérieur à la Haute Autorité de la Communication Audiovisuelle. Donc ma question est destinée à Monsieur Ouane. Donc vous avez évoqué tout à l'heure la sécurité dans la région subsaharienne et donc je suis tout à fait d'accord avec vous. Vous avez dit que c'est important de se réunir entre responsables régionaux et de multiplier les efforts donc, face à la menace. Mais serait-il indispensable de plutôt contacter des experts comme les Américains ou l'OTAN du moment qu'ils sont des experts en matière de renseignement et se focaliser plus sur la région subsaharienne que, par exemple, le Moyen-Orient ou la région de l'Afghanistan. Parce que même ici, il y a des petites organisations qui sont aussi structurées et organisées.
Please, can you ask your question because we have not much time left and there are others.
Justement, la question c'est que, est-ce que vous ne trouvez pas que c'est indispensable de contacter plus les Américains concernant, par exemple, multiplier les efforts pour cette région, exactement la région du Sahel, puisqu'il y a des organisations comme l'ACMI qui est aussi structurée et organisée que l'organisation mère qui est Al-Qaïda. Merci.
Thanks very much. One last question and I'll take it back to stage. Okay, two last questions and then we'll take it back to stage.
Bonjour, je suis Nada Brada, étudiante en première année à l'école de gouvernance et d'économie. On a parlé du Pakistan, des États-Unis et de plusieurs autres pays, mais moi j'aimerais me diriger vers la Libye. La Libye est actuellement un véritable stock d'armes, ce qui pourrait être un paradis de renaissance pour Al-Qaïda. Donc ma question est comment réagissez-vous face à cela et ne croyez-vous pas que face à cette situation et face à cette menace, une discussion s'impose? Merci.
Sure, we'll get back to that. Thank you very much for this question. And the gentleman, and then we'll get back to answer them here.
Bonjour, Hassan Flynn, professeur à l'École supérieure de gestion, ESG Casablanca. J'ai deux questions pour nos amis américains, spécialement à M. Ellenbogen. La première, c'est y a-t-il une nouvelle lecture, de nouvelles lectures au pluriel, et une nouvelle méthodologie de lecture des conflits internationaux pour ne pas tomber dans le même problème, c'est-à-dire apporter des solutions à court terme qui génèrent de grands conflits à long terme. Problématique de l'Afghanistan pour combattre le communisme, problématique de Saddam Hussein, de l'Amérique du Sud, etc. Deuxième question, dans quel ordre de priorité se trouve le conflit au Sahara pour le gouvernement américain aujourd'hui? Parce que pour nous, je crois que vous prenez beaucoup de temps pour résoudre ce problème et je crois que la prochaine poudrière serait le Sahara. Et merci.
Thank you very much for these questions. Dr. Ullman, would you like to quickly answer the Somalia question and then the foreign minister next?
The two first, I'm impressed to see so many young people here. I think
it's great,
that's
yeah.
really great. Stop. Somalia, the answer is no. Your question about anything that we have learned from, the answer is no. And the larger issue is, we understand what the problems are, we can understand what the solutions are, but implementation has really become almost impossible. It's going to take a great crisis to change things, and I will leave you with two predictions for most of us. The future, our expectations are going to be reduced for a number of reasons, largely economic, and I'm very much afraid that the standard of living around the world is going to be reduced until such time that we are prepared to take the dramatic actions that are necessary. Until then, we're going to have these great debates and these great discussions, but I fear that that lack of action will lead not to productive activity, but to the status quo, which in my judgment is not acceptable.
Thanks very much. Your Excellency, you were asked about the Sub-Saharan, and then we'll open the stage for the rest of the group. Please, could you quickly answer the question?
Bien, très brièvement et assez rapidement, sur la question, j'avais indiqué les efforts de la région, des pays de la région pour faire face aux menaces que j'avais évoquées, et en insistant sur la coopération et aussi la solidarité entre ces États-là. Naturellement, ce premier effort doit être prolongé par un autre effort qui est celui de l'action, de la coopération internationale, notamment une coopération avec les États-Unis, avec la France, avec le Maroc, avec tout autre pays. L'important, c'est de faire en sorte que, face aux menaces qui sont posées, les différents moyens permettant de combattre ces phénomènes-là puissent être mis en synergie. Par exemple, pour ce qui concerne les Américains, il y a un appui qui nous est fait déjà en matière donc, de surveillance satellitaire, en matière d'intelligence, d'information, c'est utile. Sur d'autres aspects, notamment logistiques, toute autre intervention est naturellement bienvenue pour prolonger les efforts des pays directement concernés. Vous avez parfaitement raison, on peut penser à des pays comme les États-Unis ou d'autres, ou même à des organisations internationales qui ont une certaine expertise qui pourraient appuyer les efforts en cours. Vous avez parfaitement raison. Je n'ai pas eu le temps de parler de cet aspect des choses, mais vous avez parfaitement raison. J'aimerais rapidement rebondir sur la Libye, parce que c'était un point que je voulais évoquer, mais je n'ai pas pu, puisqu'il y a une question qui est posée.
Sir, we would like to do Libya in the end round, if you don't mind.
Je termine par la Libye.
Après, s'il vous plaît. On fait la Libye, s'il vous plaît. Okay, quickly, Marc Ellenbogen, you had been asked by this gentleman, and then we will talk a little bit about Libya, and because it's going to be our end round, actually.
All right, I'm just going to make my final comments and limit them. I don't always think that more U.S. is better. I think as far as prevention, we might be able to learn from Europe and China. As far as new methodologies, I talked a little bit about prevention and dealing with food and water and so on, but it's true, as Harlan talked about it, that we see things very short term. Do I agree with him that we're not learning? No. I just think we're like old donkeys, and it takes us a long time, and we make a lot of mistakes, and then often we get it right. So that's my short answer. I'm sorry, it's not very academic. My apologies.
So let's get to Libya. Actually, generally wanted to come on this. We would like, because the problem is we're running out of time. We have only like 5 minutes left. So what I would like to do is to take also your question into the question for you all. Where are we heading to? Regarding Libya, let me tell you, I just got out of Libya. You're absolutely right. There are many weapons around. There are a lot of fractionization going on right now. You have actually former allies of Al-Qaeda now in Libya trying to form a political party. So the question to all of you, where is this all taking us? And please, if you don't mind, be quickly in your answers because it's the last round. So maybe we start with you, Excellency, and then Tom, and we go this round. Thank you very much.
Bien, sur cette question, rapidement, deux volets. Un, les répercussions de la crise libyenne sont, de notre point de vue, doivent être vues sur deux aspects. D'abord, le sort des armes qui ont été pillées à la suite de l'ouverture des arsenaux libyens. C'est extrêmement important pour des pays comme les nôtres, notamment le Mali et le Niger, qui sont directement exposés à cette situation parce que nous avons enregistré le retour de milliers de combattants en Libye qui sont revenus avec armes et bagages dans nos pays. C'est une question extrêmement importante et c'est pourquoi il est extrêmement urgent qu'un appui conséquent soit apporté à ces pays-là qui sont directement exposés à cette situation. Ça, c'est le premier volet. Le deuxième volet, c'est l'aspect diplomatique. Il y a la disparition du colonel Kadhafi a créé une sorte de vide diplomatique, naturellement, qui va donner lieu à, si ça n'a déjà commencé, à une certaine compétition diplomatique dans la région. C'est extrêmement important également, un aspect qu'il faut gérer de manière à ce que on puisse contribuer à la stabilité de la région. C'est un aspect sur lequel nous allons effectivement travailler.
Thanks very much. Tom, what has to be done to not create even more chaos?
Well, I'm somewhat of a pessimist. I see this globally heading in a very negative direction. There are so many dark spots around the world, very few bright spots. Colombia is one of the bright spots under President Pastrana and his successors. That has been a success story, but I think primarily we're heading into negative territory. You'd be surprised at the number of places the U.S. is involved helping out. Our new command in Africa, AFRICOM, is not just a military command. This is a whole of government approach. Libya is a disaster and getting worse. With all of the weapons that have been pulled out of the country, these shoulder-fired missiles are eventually going to bring down an airplane, I think, and I'm quite pessimistic. I don't know what the solutions are, but when some of the countries that are blocking efforts to address these issues are on the receiving end of some of these terror hits, I think they may change their mind, speaking specifically of Russia.
Let's also not talk only about Libya, but about the region. Professor Mohammedou, your final words, the future.
Sure. Very briefly on Libya, I think the lady raises a very important question. I share the pessimism, and I would be more specific. I think we might be heading towards a potential Iraqization of Libya. I think all of the facts are there. There's two narratives. One is about democracy blossoming in Libya. We certainly hope it happens, but it's technically and qualitatively different from what happened in Tunisia and Egypt, which are bottom-up uprisings. Here we have an intervention which has sort of infantilized the revolution, and we have a lot of weapons, a lot of vacuum. Gaddafi left a bit of a booby-trapped society in many ways, and I think it's heading towards that already. Hopefully it's not going to drift, but as I say, wishful thinking is no recipe for policy in relation to Libya. I think we might very rapidly see infighting among leadership, and the militarization of all of this, as well as past connections with Al-Qaeda, might make this more problematic. It doesn't have to be that way, and we hope it doesn't, but I think that we're already seeing this playing in slow motion. In terms of the larger set of issues, as I said, we found ourselves at the receiving ends of 10 years, I think, of dystrophies in many ways in relation to this. How to improve it? I think inevitably we have to go through what was mentioned earlier, which is kind of a rebooting of the sort of the international system in terms of cooperation, in terms of the mechanisms that have to be revamped, and certainly stay away from unilateral decision making. And by unilateral, I mean 3, 4, 5, 6 countries that have interests that sort of override and overtake sort of the legality all over this and the legitimacy beyond the legality.
Thanks very much. Let me ask the final question also to you, please, on this stage. Professor Ellenbogen, some people have said already that, one of the problems is also the way the United States are dealing with the issues, and some people would say that there is a certain arrogance how the United States are behaving in finding solutions for the conflicts. Do you think they have learned something in the last 10 years, or if we see what's going on in Libya and other countries, are we, where are we heading to? Please, your final comments.
Well, I already answered that by saying I thought we were like donkeys, but that we did learn. So yes, I do think we've learned something. As far as Pakistan goes, I think it's true that unfortunately the U.S. often looks out for how it's going to conduct itself without the interests of Pakistan in mind. I don't always think warfare is fair, and nonetheless, you have to make decisions. If you didn't make decisions, you wouldn't lose lives, and then we wouldn't have wars. But I think sometimes they're necessary, with all due respect. And one thing, Sahara. The Bush administration focused more on Sahara than the Obama administration has focused on Sahara. But I suspect in a new administration, that's also going to change, because I didn't answer that question.
And Libya?
Sorry.
Would you
Libya, what about Libya? Do I think it's going to turn into Iraq? It's possible. I know there are lots of weapons caches there that are seemingly disappearing, and it's being managed badly. And given the comments by that moron yesterday who was plathering about Qatar and the U.S., I'm not sure it's going to get any better under the rebels now taking over the government.
All right. General Athar, please, your final comments.
Okay. Well, we have been emphasizing since quite some time that a peculiar environment of Afghanistan do not allow the kind of foreign solutions that the Americans are trying to impose there. Take example of reconciliation versus reintegration. Reintegration is a bottom-up approach which will not work in that society. It's a tribal society. The tribal elders, the tribal leaders hold sway. And therefore, a reconciliation which is top-down approach, that is likely to work there. So this has been our difference. The sequence, you keep fighting and keep talking, it may not work. The sequence, kill, capture, and reconcile may not work in Afghan society. But there are now breakthroughs, and we are working on that, how to really rationalize this. So the other thing is that the regional disputes, there are differences. Age-old political disputes, there is a history of conflict in the area that needs resolution, and that needs external support also. I think if that is done, there would be a region which is more harmonized, and that can also launch its effort towards eliminating terrorism from there. So therefore, in my view, I think we have to join hands together, a combined effort to fight and eliminate terrorism. Against Al-Qaeda, we have gained considerable success. I can tell you, Damadola, in one of the agencies of Bajor, was a headquarter of Ayman al-Zawahiri. We have regained that lost territory. It was lost to Taliban. There were other agencies also which were lost to Taliban. We have regained those territories. We have enhanced our control. Now the rig of the government is restored in those
General,
areas.
You have to be a bit quick.
What we need is support, and not to undermine the effort because of distrust or mistrust.
Thanks very much, General. Dr. Ullman, quickly your final comments, and then
history matters. President Pastrana, I had cut my teeth in counterinsurgency in Colombia in the early 1960s with your Army and Marine Corps, fighting then the banditos. In 1943, the Americans began planning for the occupation of Germany and Japan. General Eisenhower made sure that his officers were prepared to become the mayors and the administrators. Too often we don't ask what comes next. When the British decided to go into Libya with the French, David Cameron never asked the military's view of what needs to be done. Libya, Egypt, Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran, Afghanistan are all going to be victims of failing to ask what comes next. When you take a look at the Republican field, and I say this as a nonpartisan, none of them have got the requisite experience to lead in foreign policy, yet one of them may become president. Unless or until we get over this issue, I'm afraid my outlook is going to be more pessimistic than positive. But one can always hope, realizing that hope is never the right strategy.
Thanks very much. General?
Yes. Oui, je voudrais répondre à la question de Madame concernant le problème des organisations internationales pour dire que les organisations internationales ne font pas forcément de manière parfaite leur travail, mais néanmoins, si elles n'existaient pas, ce serait bien pire. Il ne faut pas l'oublier. Et ce qui fait la force d'une organisation internationale, c'est derrière la capacité de chacun des États à faire face aux crises. Or, c'est là où il y a également de nombreux problèmes, car les organisations internationales, dont l'ONU, s'est organisée pour gérer les crises. Inversement, la plupart des pays ne sont pas du tout organisés pour gérer les crises. Elles ne disposent pas de cellules de crise. Elle ne dispose que d'un conseiller ou deux qui éclaire plus ou moins le dirigeant du pays. Et c'est comme cela que les choses se passent. Et ça ne peut pas bien se passer. Je pense justement qu'il y a toute l'éducation à faire au niveau de chacun des pays pour arriver justement à une coordination entre les États dans lesquels se passe la crise et les organisations internationales.
Thank you very, very much. One minute. Okay, one last minute. And then...
Justement, c'est simplement pour nuancer ce que le général a dit. Je pense que vous devriez peut-être dire que là où il n'existe pas, par exemple, de solutions alternatives, par exemple, j'ai parlé pour le cas de l'Afrique, où il existe des mécanismes adaptés. Dans toutes nos régions, nous avons des mécanismes de prévention, de gestion et de règlement des crises. Dans ces cas-là, il faut éviter l'erreur que les organisations internationales se substituent à ces organisations régionales pour résoudre les crises locales. C'est une leçon extrêmement importante qu'il faut tirer des crises récentes. Merci.
Thanks very much. Of course, we could have gone on and on and on with the discussion. I want to say thanks to all of you. I think we all started the discussion with the weather being very stormy, the discussion being very stormy. I'm glad it's calming down right now, and I would love to thank you all for your interesting comments. Would love to thank you for participating, and have a good day. Thank you very much.